Okay, it's 7:12 and we're going to call the Talent City Council regular meeting of July 2nd, 2025 to order. Roll call, please.
Counselor Coley.
Here.
Counselor Panemro.
Here.
Counselor Medina.
Here.
Counselor Pestizo.
Here.
Counselor Byers.
Here.
Counselor Parra Miller.
Here.
And Mayor Ayers Flood.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Hector. The next item on the agenda is additions and or corrections to the agenda. Anybody with additions or corrections? Alex?
Mayor, if I might, staff is requesting the addition of a authorization of hiring a new finance director to the consent calendar.
Okay, is there any other additions or corrections to the agenda? So we'll make 6.7 hiring finance director. Uh-oh. I'm glad I have a paper copy. I just turned my screen off.
But it's so big.
So the next item on the agenda is item 3. It's recognitions, proclamations, and community announcements. Why does it say page 2 on my paper agenda? Because of the community announcements? Okay. All right, so staff?
Thank you, Mayor. The city offices will be closed on Friday, July 4th in observance of Independence Day. And I guess as long as I'm mentioning that, I should thank the chief. We shared with you all that the chief got a grant to put some flags up. The first set of those flags are up on the on West Valley View. So a reminder to our residents to please celebrate the 4th of July in a respectful way that won't bother your neighbors, and a reminder that fireworks are prohibited in the City of Talent. The Talent Harvest Festival applications for vendor booths are now available. The Harvest Festival will be October 4th. And information is available at www.talentharvestfestival.org. The advanced metering infrastructure water meter replacement project is underway. So folks will be receiving door hangers warning them when there's going to be a few minutes of interruption as we replace their water meter. Weed abatement, of course, is ongoing. And as of today, fire danger has been moved to high, which means that no power equipment can be used on non-irrigated lawns between 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. So you can still mow green irrigated lawns, but if you have brown grass, you should not be using any power equipment between 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. For additional updates on fire danger, visit swofire.com. The Talent Artisans and Growers Market is in effect this summer again, thanks to the Talent Business Alliance. The next date is July 25th. Please remember to sign up for Jackson Alerts to receive emergency notifications. That is jacksoncountyor.gov/alerts. And a last announcement, last time to mention, there is going to be the accessory dwelling unit workshop on July 12th at the Phoenix Civic Center. And that sign up is available through jccltrg.org. Thanks, Mayor. That's it.
Thank you. Any other community announcements? I just have a quick question about this. The flags on the bridge are beautiful, and I'm glad that we got them, and I'm glad they're there. They're really beautiful. And in particularly in observance of Independence Day, when this nation became independent of a king. But I wanted to know, somebody asked me if they went up for Flag Day and are up until, are they going to stay up? What's the protocol? Do we have a protocol?
I don't know that we've completely discussed the protocol, but
due to staff time, our thought was to put it up, Memorial Day and take them down after the 4th of July. So we're not putting them up and taking them down. We do have some volunteers that have shown interest in putting them up and taking them down, but we need to have waivers and stuff signed for that.
So I think that's pretty close. I think Flag Day is close to Memorial Day, so they weren't far off on their guess. Yeah, okay, good.
And
I-
we just received them within a couple of weeks, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. So. we didn't have
Fantastic.
them up in time.
Thanks. Now I can look smarter than I did in that that moment. Oh, I don't know.
Eventually there'll be 40 flags.
Yeah.
Up West Valley U. The grant was for $5,000.
Very good. Okay, so, the next item on the agenda is item number 4, which is item number 4, public testimony. Do we have any speaker request forms?
Mayor, I have recusals.
Oh, yeah, that's supposed to be on item number 2. Sorry, we're gonna go back to item number 2 for recusal. Counselor Perry?
Thank you. So I have 2 potentials, I believe. And that would be with 7.1 discussion of transient lodging tax and 7.2 discussion of peer scope revisions. So they're both related to my being paid staff for the Talent Business Alliance. And then for the first one, it would be a potential because TBA's listed as a potential organization that could receive TLT tax funds in the staff report. And then for the second one, is it okay that I'm combining these?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then for the second one, it's because TBA was the organization that presented the Gateway Hub concept to the Tura board. So again, my understanding is that both of these would just be potential. And I'm looking at Dave.
I'm sorry, was that a question?
Did that sound accurate to you, Dave?
It does, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, make the same declaration, although I want to say for the record that on item 7.1, while Talent Business Alliance, I'm an employee of Talent Business Alliance, and while Talent Business Alliance is listed as an allowed recipient, we have not made a request, and we have no plans to make a request for transient lodging tax. But in an abundance of caution, I'm declaring a potential conflict of interest for 7.1 because I am a employee of Talent Business Alliance. And then also 7.2, I am an employee of Talent Business Alliance, and there's a potential conflict of interest in the for a project on the Gateway. Counselor Byers?
Yeah, I wanted to note that in the past, I have declared a potential conflict of interest in connection to agenda items that might potentially benefit the Talent Business Alliance, because at that time I had an open contract with them, but that contract has since closed. However, I would declare out of an extreme abundance of caution for item 7.1, a potential conflict of interest, because there is the possibility of me having a future contract with the Talent Business Alliance. However, there is none at the moment.
Okay, so anybody else? All right, item number 4 is, so we did item number 3. Item number 4 is public testimony. There are no speaker request forms and none online. Okay, and so then the next item is item number 5, which is the city manager and department report. Staff?
Thank you, Mayor. We don't have any department reports tonight, but I'll share a few items from my office. We have a tentative agreement contingent on council approval and completion of background check for a new finance director with a start date of July 21st. Dana Mason is currently the finance manager at City of Ashland and has previously served as the finance director of several, two different municipalities in Washington State. They're both operating on cash basis, so has the exact kind of experience and background that we're looking for. We will also be posting an additional position next week, which is while we're sad to see Doc go, Doc is retiring, and we're going to be hiring a new facilities maintenance person. Also, we've wrapped up reimbursements recently on about $700,000 worth of grant funding between the Age Plus project, the hazard mitigation grant program, which had been hanging out there for a while. And we were a little nervous about it, but that's all been paid up. OEM and FEMA are fully paid with us. And staff also issued this week an invitation for folks who are interested in being tenants, or organizations that are being interested in being tenants, more specifically at the Talent Community Resource Center, to let us know. That's a deadline of July 21, and all that information is on the website. And last to note, thanks to the support of council, the food pantry will be in this building as of July 14th. We had a couple conflicts of already scheduled things, or we would have got them in a little earlier, but they will be in here on July 14th. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Alex. Item number 6 is the consent calendar. Is there anything on this consent calendar that council would like to move over to the regular agenda for discussion? Councilor Panamarev?
Yeah, I don't know that I need it moved. I'm curious about the new software that the police will have. So I just have some curiosity questions about that for the chief. I don't know if you want to pull it out.
I'm going to pull it out for discussion. It'll be 7.1. All right. Anything else on the consent calendar? All right, so I'll entertain a motion on a consent calendar currently listed as 6.1, then 6.3 through 6.7, which includes the addition of hiring a finance director. Councilor Byers?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Collet,
Yes.
Councilor Panama,
Yes.
Councilor Medina,
Yes.
Councilor Pestizo,
Yes.
Councilor Byers.
Yes.
And Councilor Prime Miller.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mayor.
Thank you, Hector. For the record, I'm changing the order of business. 7.1 is going to be Axon. 7.2 will be discussion of transient lodging tax. Let the record show that the recusals will be reflected accordingly. And then 7.3 is the discussion of peer scope revision. Again, let the record show that the recusals will be recorded accordingly. So with that, 7.1, do you want any comments from staff before you ask your questions?
Sure, yeah. Sorry.
Nothing like a few comments that you're unprepared for, right?
There's an
You got this.
Thank you for that. So, in reading the staff report, it would be cost prohibitive for us to have our own independent records management system. And there's value into having a county-wide system to where, for investigative purposes, it assists with, those cases as well. So there's some efficiencies in the system. We're looking forward to it, saving some staff time as well. Because the system that we currently have is outdated and has its issues. And so, cops don't like change, but this is a welcome change. And if it were to be approved.
Thank you, Chief. Councilor Panamarev?
Yeah, and there, by no means am I pushing back, but what I wanted to know is, first of all, have you had a chance, and I'll just say, my bias is software. I think having a good software tool makes everybody's job easier and everybody more efficient. So I'm definitely in favor of an upgrade. But my question for you is if whether you've had a chance to use this new software and what other, did you get a feel for it? Do you see other advantages? And also specifically, do you know why the state troopers are not using this software?
So in rereading this, I realized I worded that probably wrong. What I meant to say is they have their own independent one and they always have. So they're the only agency essentially in the county that wouldn't be on the same platform as all the other agencies in the county.
Sorry, does that mean it's a different brand?
Yes,
Oh.
the state uses a whole different system.
Gotcha.
Yes. So Medford PD hosted demos with different vendors. I did not go to them due to prior commitments, meetings, but I did send some of my staff, including the records personnel that are really the ones that are doing that. And the feedback was that this was the best system. Medford did their due diligence and research and selected this vendor. So, although I don't want to say our hands are tied, but they really essentially are.
And then just to follow up, I mean, whenever I talk to folks in the profession, it's that, the hardest part is just all the report writing is really onerous. And my hope is that the better software, and my faith is that better software will help make this easier.
There's definitely some efficiencies that we could explore as well. There's Axon AI. It's real now in the police world. And I
That
had,
frightens me.
yeah, I had talked to Alex about that during our last budget process. It's expensive. And so with this project, we just really couldn't do both. I know Medford's going, and some other agencies are, Eagle Point's going to it. They found it basically writes your report off your body camera. So officers still have to go in and review the data and make sure it's, the representation of what the documents are. And it also requires them to narrate more on their body camera, where the body cams are just you engaged in conversations with people, taking enforcement or whatever it is, a traffic stop or whatever, but it would require you to articulate more details of what you're seeing as you're like approaching a house or maybe a traffic stop or something, and because you want to catch those details that the camera doesn't catch. They're finding, when Medford tried it, they're finding that it saves significant staff time. It's allowing officers to be on the street more, less time sitting behind a desk and typing reports. So the DA's office is on board with it. So it's, I will be coming to you at some point with those requests, but this is, a priority, obviously.
Counselor Penamara?
So for now, Talent is not going to be using the AI option, is what I'm
Correct.
hearing you saying.
We have to pay for that.
Okay, so the
Yes.
Eagle Point is, And-
So Axon also manages our body cameras and our tasers and our digital evidence. So we have a separate contract for that, but we have 2 more years left of that contract. So in about a year and a half, I would come to council requesting a renewal of the contract with an addition of these other services, which would actually bring a savings to this Axon records management system. If we consolidate them, there's some fees that we wouldn't have to pay on the records management system.
so just to follow up, the reason I'm asking about Eagle Point is so that there'll be other jurisdictions that will have had some local experience with the AI. And those are Eagle Point and what were the other ones?
Medford, and I think Jackson County is
Okay.
testing it. They're all in, I'm not sure if Medford's currently using it, but they had like 10 officers that were testing the system to evaluate, its effectiveness.
Fascinating. Thank you.
Counselor Coe?
Yeah, I think you kind of answered my question, but it was just about what that potential cost difference would be for the AI version, and it sounds like there might be some collective savings, so just wait a couple of years. Hear the report then.
Yeah. It was, when we quoted it a few months ago, it was $30,000 more a year from what we're already paying for the system.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a lot
But
per year.
it also has other upgrades, you know, the taser upgrades, body camera upgrades. It has where I can essentially sit at a computer and remote into their body cams and watch what they're doing at a scene. Obviously, that's not something that we would do on everything, but if there was a critical incident and maybe I'm not, you know, I'm an hour away, I can remote in and watch what's going on. So.
That made me look, just make sure I had the total price of it right in the first place, which was 143 over 5 years, right?
Correct.
And the upgrade would be $30,000 more a year? An additional
For a new-
150?
No, for a new package, a new Axon package, you do everything in packages. So it'd be our body cameras, our tasers, Axon AI, and the records management system. There would be some savings, but with a separate contract, it was 30,000 more a year to sign a new equipment contract.
Gotcha.
Yeah, for
Okay.
the AI.
Well, I won't belabor the point. It just, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Counselor,
What's the timeline for go live with this?
It's 2 years from this month is so Axon, we met the chiefs, and sheriff, we meet once a month and we met, with Axon at a meeting where they presented the timeline. They would have somebody on site for, I believe, a period after you go live for support. Otherwise, they're stationed out of state, as is the current vendor as well. So, but they will have people on site for a specific amount of time and they'll be working on building the programs and then transitioning the current data over. So everything that we currently have will transfer. And then, as you can see, there's 3 additional vendors that we subscribe to for services that are provided through Axon. So there's, $4,200 a year in savings right there with consolidating those services.
Counselor Bastizo?
So are we paying the same amount for these first 2 years before it goes live? Or is this what we're gonna pay once it goes live or?
We don't pay, we need a signed contract now to work on the transition, but we don't pay anything until July 1st of 2027, which that's Mr. Campbell and I discussed maybe putting some money in the next few budget years aside, so it's less impactful to the budget.
Good move. Counselor Penamra?
Did you say that Ashland is also upgrading to this new software?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we're the last ones that haven't brought it to council for signatures. Everybody else is on board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve item 7.1, which is the Axon Records Management System cost share contract. Council Penamra?
I move to approve the contract with Axon Enterprises for the city's portion of a shared records management system.
Second.
What page is that?
Page 13.
13?
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second to approve the contract with Axon Enterprises for the city's portion of a shared records management system. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call please.
Counselor Coley,
Yes.
Counselor Penemra,
Yes.
Counselor Medina,
Yeah.
Counselor Pestizo.
Yes.
Counselor Byers, Counselor Miller.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mayor.
Thank you, Hector. Okay, the next item on the agenda is 7.2. It was 7.1 for the record. Now 7.2, discussion of transient lodging tax. Staff?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So prior to developing or bringing forward a specific proposal, staff is requesting some discussion with council about what that proposal should look like in terms of improving the city's ability to collect lodging taxes. Currently, the city has a transient room tax. It dates back to 1992. It has not been updated since in 2018 and 2019, the state changed the underlying ordinance to allow those local governments and the state who impose transient lodging tax to impose that on the platforms such as Airbnb that the vast majority of these bookings take place through today. So they resisted being taxed and argued that they should not pay the tax. So the state ordinance made clear the route through which we could tax transient lodging intermediaries. The city has never taken advantage of that. So I suspect, and so our collection, our ability to collect has been severely limited by that. The other step that would really make that collection much more effective, and I think these two things really would be most effective together. So the other step would be to sign an IGA with the state, under which the state would collect whatever the local transient lodging tax rate is. They're already collecting from a large number of providers around the state, including all those who are operating through these Airbnb and other providers like that. So staff is interested in discussion with council. One, that general approach, does that make sense to present you all with code that would work and match the state's needs in order for the state to be able to collect on our behalf, and also to add the transient lodging intermediary? So I guess that's the first question. The second question is, as long as we're working on transient room tax, transient lodging tax, is council happy with the current rate, which is 6%? And then the final question that should be discussed is what should be the use of these revenues. Currently, they are, I think, in the range of $5,000. So they are currently dedicated to the Parks Fund. Staff is optimistic with these two changes that we could be generating more revenue, which I think would benefit from council discussion about where we would want to dedicate, where the city would want to dedicate those funds. So why don't I stop there and see which pieces of this we want to delve more deeply into? There is certainly some complexity in the rules around the use of these revenues, but I guess the good news, or the simple news, is that the legislature did not change them. So what is in the staff report is the current law.
Counselor Perry Miller?
Thank you. So a question that is in my head, and it's probably a really simple answer, is does the state collect this tax for most jurisdictions? Like even larger places like Medford? And is it mostly because we would have to do that? And that's cumbersome.
I'm confident that Ashland uses the state system, and I'm reasonably confident Ashland is collecting the most in the county. So I think there are dozens of municipalities that collect the tax. I've only seen a list of those that do. So I would need to get back with you on the sort of the proportion.
That's okay. Mostly just curious because I don't know, for me, it makes a lot of sense that we would want the state to do that for us because it would be something that we wouldn't have to necessarily add more staff capacity to do, especially if they're already set up to do that. But I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing some nuance of the situation. Thanks, Alex.
Counselor Penamroff?
Thank you. Yeah, just comments really. I like the IGA approach. And as far as in, you know, what we did charge, I think 10% in alignment with Ashland, I think that makes sense. I realize it'll still be a small amount. But you know, that's my state of mind right now. And as far as where I'm really interested in input from other folks as far as how this relatively small amount of money should be distributed.
Counselor Collet?
Yeah, I echo that. I am also for the IGA agreement, and in just a quick search, it looks like a lot of municipalities in Oregon use the state to collect their transient lodging tax. 10% was also the number that I had in my head to raise our lodging tax to as well, so I would be in favor of that. And I also don't have any concrete opinions on where that money would be spent at the moment, but we'd be happy to talk about it.
Counselor Postizo and then Counselor Byers.
Yeah, well, when I first heard this, I thought, the first thought that came to my mind of where to spend the money, if it's enough to be worthwhile, would be on help us with our ongoing struggle with weed abatement. Since people are coming to visit our city, we would make it look better and be safer. So that, I don't know if however much we're bringing in would make much of a dent in that or not.
So you're saying funds to go to Public Works
For that particular purpose.
and actually Parks could perform that. Public Works does perform parks. Yeah. So yeah, gotcha. Okay, Counselor Byers?
Yeah, similarly, I'd like, even through the lens of like promoting tourism to our town, but for me, even more importantly, improving the livability and quality of life of our community, I think it's important to look at our parks. We've got a number of projects that don't have a current idea of funding that really contribute to people's well-being, like replacing the tennis courts, but also weed abatement and blackberry abatement. And I think all of those items do secondarily support people visiting our community, but I would hope that that money first and foremost benefits the people who are living here currently.
I have some input. So full disclosure, I have a career in hospitality. So I'm very, very familiar with the TLT, its history, the resistance that lodging has given it over the years, and some of the political kind of peaks and valleys of its history. And, you know, first of all, I think it's important to know that TLT originally, and still is really, was a voluntary tax that was suggested by the lodging industry as a means of collecting funds to help generate more visitorship for obvious reasons, because it increases, it also increases occupancy. And I think that's an important thing to bear in mind when we talk about how to utilize these funds. It was literally an industry that stepped up and said, we'll tax our customers and we'll provide a portion of this to the municipalities that collect the tax. But that the rest of it should go to helping the city with managing the industry in various ways. And so my hope would be to see first of all, I would suggest we go to 11%. You know, the concern with the amount of tax is often based on how that impacts occupancy. And I think it's pretty fair to say that folks that stay in lodging in Talent are doing that mostly while they're visiting Ashland, and it's really as a means of saving money. If you do a market study on both of the communities, it is a little less expensive to stay in a VRBO here than it is in Ashland. So I don't think the 1% is actually going to cause any compression on the occupancy at all. And I think the 11% in a smaller community, it makes more sense when you're in a bigger community and there's a lot of inventory, a lot of rooms, and a lot of revenue to, for the smaller amount. But when you have a small community like ours, the impact is different, and I think we should go for the full 11%. That would be my thought. And then my last ask would be that we consider funding the Harvest Festival with these funds. And just the history of the Harvest Festival has been that, the different managers have wanted to find other ways to run the Harvest Festival going back as far back as I can remember, really. Tom Corrigan, Sandy Spellacy, both made real attempts to, I think at one point in time, Tom Corrigan was hoping that the city would not have to do it at all. And it's because the way it's managed, it has a financial impact to our community. And that's an event that, it has an impact to our community, but it has an impact for our community as well, I would argue. That's an event that benefits the well-being of our community and attracts visitors, which can provide that investment into local economy that really the intention of this tax was made for in the first place. I realize I could have probably developed a report and given you a more intelligent kind of scenario, but I really feel like if we're going to invest this voluntary tax into our community, it might be to our advantage to do it in a way that also has some economic revitalization impact. And in the one of the best events that does that is the Harvest Festival. It brings in a tremendous amount of foot traffic, and it would just be nice to stabilize that and not have it come up periodically as an item on our budget that we have to question and scratch our head over. So those are just my thoughts. Councilor Penamarath?
First off, I just want to say, I really like that idea. I like it. When it's with some of the suggestions, I was, I guess coming from the principle is, does, the source of the funding connect well with the destination? And although weed abatement, parks, all of that is really important, I think Harvest Festival hit it much closer for me. I'm also wondering whether generally placemaking could be, my dream is that Harvest Festival actually breaks even. I don't know if that's possible. But if we were to say raise $20,000 with this tax and say we Harvest Festival didn't cost that much because vendors were willing to pay or whatever. I was wondering about whether it could be broadened to just basically include placemaking and maybe that or events like the Harvest Festival. We've had some really great events as well. But I do agree with I think the spirit of tourism is the stuff that brings people, the kind of the exciting stuff, the sexy stuff, like the Harvest Festival that brings people here. So I'd be more supportive of that. And also there's the constraint, half of it really does have to go.
Councilor Medina?
I too also like the idea of the Harvest Festival, and also just other events like it. Before COVID, I know we started like with Dia de los Muertos race, and it started becoming bigger, and then COVID happened. So just events like that really like resonate with communities, that would be awesome. But this would-
Lights
know,
on
I-
bike.
Did you say what?
Lights on bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really quickly, I forgot to add, when whether or not we put this in parks or in Harvest Festival, it's just really moving money around. It doesn't, it would be less impact to the general fund, and therefore the general fund can pay for weed abatement. Therefore, the general fund could pay into whatever. Do you know what I mean? So, but it is more purist is what I was trying to express, and I hope I did that. More purist as the intention of this original tax intention. Counselor Collet?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I do like the idea of it being used for the Harvest Festival or other events. I also think beautification of parks and public spaces would be a noble use of this money. Do we have any idea if we were to raise it to 10 or 11% and actually collect closer to whatever the full amount would be? Do we have an idea of what that amount of money ballpark would be?
I think it'd be fun to maybe bet on.
Okay.
the Question. I think.
Because right now we're talking about with what we collect is $6,000.
Yeah, we're talking about at least doubling it.
Right.
If we're doubling the rate or more or less doubling the rate. I suspect it's probably 2 to 3 times on top of that.
Okay.
I suspect that we're capturing 10, maybe 10, 20% of the existing operators.
And then my other question along those lines is, I know there was an opportunity with the Harvest Festival in the past to get business sponsorships. Do we have a ballpark of what the Harvest Festival costs?
So the way I'm looking at this year is we are continuing to explore and understand that better. We're shooting for break even this year. I think that's possible. But we won't know until we get there.
Just the reason why I asked that question is I really like the idea of using this money for the Harvest Festival, but I see that the Harvest Festival might already have the potential to be revenue neutral or close to neutral. And so maybe this money could go into some sort of fund that we use for events like that, and the Harvest Festival could apply for it, but also a race or some other festival in town or a market or something could also apply for money that was utilized for public facing events rather than it only going to something that might be able to take care of itself.
I appreciate the idea that what you just proposed allows us to measure impact. And while I also agree that working in the parks and doing weed abatement has a net positive effect, it's not measurable. And I still think that you're just really moving money around, right? When you're not tapping into the general fund for these things, the general fund can be used for, when I say these things, I mean events. The general fund can be used for weeding and beautifying the city. Anyway, yeah, my finer point being that events impact economic revitalization, and that's measurable. Counselor Penamarav?
Yeah, I just wanted to just underline and agree with what you were saying about the whole purist thing. And I also it reminded me of our earlier conversation about what I've read about people paying taxes, and you'll hear this from businesses a lot. If we know what the money is going to, we are more willing to pay for it. So if we just call it the talent party fund, I think that people will, look at this more favorably. The direct connection between what it's going to, I think is more meaningful and will basically make it a little bit more popular.
Whatever we do, let's not call it the talent party.
City council pay? Okay.
All right. So,
Thank you. I think that's exactly what I needed. And just to be clear, what will come back in there sort of two steps on the revenue, right? One is what we're going to sort of commit to accounting for as far as the tourism benefit of these revenues. So that's the first step. And then the second step is, well, you could look at both sides. you know, how do you want to dedicate the funds that are flexible to a certain purpose? As your budget officer, I'd encourage and request anytime that we can put money in the general fund, that's the best way to manage any time you got that opportunity. And then the second question would be how to dedicate those funds that we are saying are meeting the obligation to support tourism. And it sounds like there's something close to a consensus on what we should suggest there.
Council Byers?
When would the collection of these funds begin, if that was something that we voted on?
Yeah, so if I remember, this Department of Revenue with whom we'd be doing the intergovernmental agreement, and they said about 90 days from a signed agreement to them collecting on our behalf.
Council Coley?
And I think if I remember correctly, the transient lodging tax is paid monthly by, or is that, so we'd get some amount of money every month?
Yes, yep, that's correct.
Councilor Penamara?
A clarifying question, as far as tourism related, so half of it is to be tourism related, the other half could be general fund. Tourism related, as far as parks is concerned, I think I read in the report that it has to be improved parks, so would that be like, you know, the little gazebo thing, or what do we have examples of improvements? What we mean with the splash pad, Kelly?
Tennis court.
Yes, so I don't, I don't think there's any requirement that it has to be invested in capital investment. While the definition of tourism related facility is that is real property, that's part of the definition of a tourism related facility, but you could use it to operate a tourism related facility.
And there is a definition to tourism related facility that I think everybody needs to be aware of that. I mean, there's a difference between, I don't have the language at the tip of my tongue, but it's, you know, like a visitor attraction is different than a tourism related facility. And the tourism related facility might not be the language we want to use, because I think there's a radius that there's something that's designed to bring in people from 200 miles away or whatever. I don't remember what the miles are. But we might want to kind of shift over to visitor attraction, because that includes those events that bring people from Ashland, bring people from Central Point, from our region to spend money here, which is also really small town appropriate in many ways. So I don't know, just a thought. Anything else on this that you need? Alex, thank you for the discussion.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 7.2. It was 7.2, it's now 7.3, discussion of peer scope revisions. And again, recusals for the record are recorded accordingly. Staff report?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. We you all met recently and discussed this topic, and I presented to the tour board question of assuming that, well, I think that the decision has been made that we do not have the cooperation that we need from TID to build the Wagner extension, and so the decision's been made that to not build that. I presented sort of two primary options to you all the last time we discussed to the tour board. One would be to look for additional infrastructure investments that we might make under the existing grant as it is structured. The other alternative would be to request OHCS add an additional economic development activity that would allow the construction of a public building that would house a business incubator. I have in mind the Gateway Hub as it is being discussed and evolving. You all had the tour board had several questions about the strings that potentially come attached with that and what the implications of using this color of money, community development block grant funds to build a business incubator. And so the first question was, the incubator has to serve low and moderate income individuals. And the primary test of that is that the businesses that are being assisted either be micro enterprises or that they be generating income, low and moderate income jobs. The additional question that the tour board asked was, well, this organization as currently envisioned might offer classes and other types of activities. Would we need to follow any kind of LMI tests for that? And the answer was no. If the primary purpose was the job creation and the business incubation, we could focus the test on that, and other sort of secondary activities wouldn't have to be tracked and tested. Another question was exactly which jobs count, because there is this requirement that the majority of new jobs be created by some tenants be for low and moderate income individuals. So the question was, well, sort of that's what does the calculation look like and what jobs count? And essentially OHCS's response was, if those business incubatees, the businesses that are in the business incubator, have employees that are 100% entirely off-site, that they would not be part of the calculation. But any of their employees that were regularly on site would be part of the calculation. So I think that's a fairly clean line to divide the that calculation when we need to look at it. And then the final question was about where one could draw the line between infrastructure spending and benefiting this new building. And I'm really glad we asked OHCS for clarification, because I had given you, I think, bad information. I had suggested that I thought that infrastructure investment could even include parking lot improvements for this building. And their response was, well, if you had a public parking lot that was adjacent to this building, that was helping serve that building, that could be infrastructure. But if it's a dedicated parking lot for that building and it's on that lot, that's part of the building. So, and it certainly would be true of any foundation, which was another question. You know, could we even do some investment in the foundation, or the beneath the foundation is the footing? But both of those, the answer was no. Those are clearly part of the building, could not be funded by infrastructure. So I think, to summarize, my sense of where the tour board was leaning towards requesting a new economic development activity. And I think all of the clarifications that we got from OHCS would all point in that similar direction, that we found out that the strings in terms of the reporting aren't any more than we originally understood at our last meeting, and the flexibility to essentially help this project with infrastructure investment. We have less maneuverability to do that than I had suggested. So I think that's the summary of what I've learned since we last discussed, and we welcome your questions or further deliberation.
Councilor Panamarev?
Yeah, I was wondering if you could explain a little bit the reference to the Davis-Bacon requirements. I think that's prevailing wage, but then OHCS goes on to make a distinction between heavy type and work type and building work type. So I was wondering if you could just explain what that means in terms of how much things are going to cost.
Yeah. To be completely transparent, I included all of that because I wanted to include their full response. I'm not sure that it's, I don't think that it's that important to our decision. I think it was more a flag from OHS just to remember when you go and you do cost estimating, that there is a distinction here that you should keep in mind as well.
Can I follow up?
Counselor Penamara?
So, I mean, these are federal dollars. Is there any universe we would build this building without federal dollars, that it wouldn't be federalized and that it would be therefore cheaper for us to build?
It's a great question. I think there is that universe. I mean, that universe exists. I mean, assuming you believe in a multiverse. I think there are three probably, I've been thinking about three primary sources of funding to get this project done. One would be these CDBG funds. One would be revenues from the sale of the balance of the property. And then the third are grant funds. And some of those may be federal and some of those may be private. I can conceive of a route to get this project done without federal funds. I think having the opportunity to have a significant infusion of federal funds makes the project significantly more feasible in my mind. I mean, I don't think there's any certainty that we could do the project with or without federal funds. I think the chances of doing the project with federal funds is significantly higher. But you certainly wouldn't want to add $1 of federal funds to the project, because the assumption underlying your question is absolutely correct. Adding federal funds makes the project more expensive. So I certainly wouldn't recommend adding $1 of federal funds or $10,000 of federal funds, or probably even $100,000 of federal funds. But north of $500,000 or $1 million of federal funds, you're making progress on having enough budget to build the project as a whole. The other caveat that I would add is the federalization of a project increases costs for a number of different reasons. With what we're talking about here, we don't have to worry about additional environmental review costs, right? All that environmental review has been, I shouldn't say all, 95% of that environmental review has been done for the Pier project, because we've looked at excavation, we've looked at runoff. So the vast majority of the environmental review costs that would be brought newly by federalizing, those have been handled. The other is that on construction costs, and this goes back to the BOLI question, the differential between BOLI labor rates on residential projects is a lot more than the differential between BOLI rates on commercial projects, because often with commercial projects, you're using union labor anyway, with resident. So again, there is a differential, but it's not as severe as it is in the case of federalizing other types of projects.
Very well explained. Thank you.
Counselor Penamara?
I have a different question. So I've also read in there that if this is about solar panels constructed as part of the original scope of work and related to those activities, it would become part of the infrastructure. So I'm feeling myself pulled in a couple of directions. One is I really do want, the hub to happen. On the other hand, it would be really great to make this a resiliency hub. So I'm thinking, what's the easiest path for this money? So reading that sentence about solar panels, if we were to add, solar panels, battery, that would count as infrastructure, and that could be part of the original grant. We wouldn't have to go back to the committee and ask them for a change. And I'm just trying to read that sentence and understand it.
So the way I understood that sentence is if we were to build public solar panels are essentially owned by the city and are generating electricity for the benefit of the city as a whole, that we could call that infrastructure. But if the solar panels are particularly tied to a microgrid that's connected to this building, then they would consider it part of the building activity.
Or the microgrid was connected to the rest of the project, the gateway site, but not the building.
Well,
It would have to be public.
yeah, it would have, it has to be, it would have to be public to be
Okay.
Like
infrastructure.
the promenade, for example.
Yes, so if you, I mean, if you're using the revenue and that electricity for purely public purposes, I think that's how I read it. So there may be something more worth exploring there, but what was clear to me was that if we have two activities, right? And I think that was the way she was assuming the question, right? You've got two activities, and if the solar panels are tied to this building, then it's clearly part of the building activity. If we didn't have that building activity at all, and we were building solar panels for the city, that could qualify as infrastructure. I don't know that we've fleshed out all the possibilities of how that energy would be used. I'm not totally familiar with the rules and regs of like a purely production solar facility. Right, this solar facility, I think, is sometimes tied to this building, and there's excess that's being sold to the grid. Let's say is, I think I've answered the piece of your question that I can answer, but
Yeah.
I think there are definitely other questions there that I don't know the answer to.
Thanks, Ellen.
Any other questions or comments? Council Collet?
Yeah, so if we make the motion to create a new activity and put this money towards the Gateway Hub, that would be what we talked about with Tura going back to the peer committee, and they would have to approve that amendment or.
That's correct, yes. That if we request a new activity, OHCS would convene the regional peer committee to make sure that adjustment to the project scope was acceptable to them.
Council Medina?
If it wasn't acceptable to them, do we just like move on with the original plan or what happens?
That's right. We would continue on with the project, and we would have these additional funds that we're thinking about putting in this new activity. They would remain in the infrastructure activity, and I think we'd have another conversation about what kind of placemaking or perhaps public energy production or other elements that we might want to add that would still fit under that infrastructure.
Council Penamara?
And I'm just wondering, I'm just asking crystal ball guesstimates as far as costs. If say we were able to save like $500,000 towards this new activity, towards the building, what do we think it would cost to build it?
Well, obviously there's different sizes of building, so at say a 2,500 square foot building, for example, commercial construction costs, high side, maybe $500 a square foot. That's a $1.25 million building.
Council, oh, are you raising your hand?
No, I'm
Just going like this.
I'm rubbing my hands.
And I should say that's the building itself. There's site prep and other costs. So total cost, probably more like $1.5, $2 million for the
That's a
project.
significant portion.
Yeah,
We're
it
not,
could-
not talking about a $10 million.
It could take a real dent out of the project.
Counselor Collet?
Yeah. So we talked about the alternative funding methods of the Gateway Hub. Is there a scenario where we choose to spend some of this money to put towards the Gateway Hub? We can't find other money to build it. We have a $500,000 start of something just sitting there.
Yeah, and that was exactly this last question that I don't think the tour board necessarily asked, but was the question I added. And to put it in colloquial terms, I was asking OACS, you understand that we don't really know exactly how much we want in which pot, and you're not gonna be mad at us if we say, oh, we want more on one side and less than the other. We're gonna have to pick a dollar amount to start with. But what I understood there, they accepted that it's gonna move back and forth. I didn't go as far as say, hey, we may need to abandon this project entirely. But I don't think that there's any barrier to doing that,
So, the other is it possible with this funding? I mean, the original intention was so that the city would own a commercial building, or at least own it in a way where the city can incentivize a commercial building there. So, would that infrastructure be able to be used to incentivize a commercial project if that were the case? In other words, here's the infrastructure, here's everything, everything that's already done, and we want to incentivize a commercial project that the city wouldn't end up owning, maybe, or I think at one point in time, Gary proposed even just owning an interest in a commercial building as one of his scenarios. Is that possible?
Conceivable, but they'd have this low and moderate income benefit requirement. So I think, it's imaginable, but hard to imagine.
Yeah, got it. Counselor Penamarath?
Just a couple, Neighborly that's referenced in here, is that their software?
Sorry, yes.
Then they just they're just saying it would be two separate projects. Yeah, I was also wondering, and this is along the same lines of the two questions we just heard, is that I think, when I was on the pier, one of the things is like, there was not an interest in funding part of something where the rest of the money was gonna come through. So I'm wondering if we were to go back to the committee, they might be asking, well, do you have the rest of the money, or are you just asking for some money and then just gonna pray for the rest, what's going on? So I'm just wondering if maybe that's a question for Daniel, whether feels we have to have some more opportunities at least thought about. Or you, I mean.
Yeah,
I have an answer to that. No.
I honestly fell away from that work by the time those final decisions were being made. So I'm not familiar with how much of a barrier that's going to be. OACS was rather optimistic that we're not going to get a lot of pushback. I would say it's a question we should be prepared for, but if that's a deal killer, nothing mentioned, nothing gained, we're going to know in 30 days or 45 days, whether we've got a real hurdle, an insurmountable hurdle there.
And in the meantime, Leland will be doing feasibility, market studies, things like that. Counselor Collet?
Yes, and really with what you just said, if we make this motion, we go to OHCS and say, hey, is it okay if we do this? And they say no. We take that money and spend it on infrastructure.
Correct, correct. And to be clear, OHCS is not saying that we may say no, they're saying that the regional
Yeah, the
advisory
committee, yeah.
group may say. No.
And even, sorry, a follow up to that, if the committee said yes, and then we found out some piece of information after they said yes,
Mhm.
that just made it. So we couldn't use that money
Impossible.
for that project, we could
Right.
still use it for the original.
That is my understanding and I'm pretty confident in that. I don't really want to ask the question in exactly those terms. But I'm confident that at the end of the day, they've allocated these funds to our project and they want to spend the funds and we would transferring them back into the other activity would be the easiest way for them to solve that problem.
Any further comments or questions? Counselor Penamara?
Are you ready to entertain a motion?
Yes, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay. I move to direct staff to request that a new activity be created under the city's peer grant to allow the construction of a public building.
Second,
Is that on page 77?
78.
78, thank you. We have a motion and a second to direct staff to request that a new activity be created under the city's peer grant to allow the constructions of a public building. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Perry Miller?
I just have a question sort of for Dave. So this motion is a little general. Is it okay for me to vote on this? I mean, it's implied that it's about the incubator.
Well, your disclosure was of a potential conflict. And in that case, the answer is yes, you can vote on it and participate in the deliberation.
Because this is really just sending an application request for an amendment to OHCS Peer Selection Committee, Daniel. Right?
Yeah, I would probably, if you had asked me ahead of time, I probably would have said, I don't think you even need to declare a potential conflict.
Okay.
But the fact that you did doesn't hurt anything. And in fact, it
Mhm.
clarifies things for the public if they were to have a question. So, and it doesn't, and certainly having that potential, even if it is a potential conflict, that doesn't prevent you from voting.
Okay. Thanks.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Is there any further discussion? I'm just gonna add that if I were, if this was a split vote and the mayor had a vote on, I would vote to support this. I think from the beginning, this project has asked for and residents who've been involved in early planning have asked for a public use of some sort on this site. And whatever that is, it starts with a public building. So I would support the motion. Any further deliberation? All right, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Councilor Collet,
Yes.
Councilor Penemra,
Yes.
Councilor Medina,
Yeah.
Councilor Pestizo,
Yes.
Councilor Byers,
Yes.
and Councilor Parra Miller.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mayor.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is 8.1, which is update fee schedule, staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So many cities have comprehensive fee schedule. What I presented here is a step in that direction. The first element of it would be the community development fee schedule. Under the city's ordinance, we are directed to update that annually for inflation. That hasn't taken place for a few years. So the first piece of the proposal here is to update the community development fees for inflation. And so the first, and I apologize, I think Hector and I had a slight miscommunication about which was attached to two. So you have a few different copies of the proposed fee schedule, but I think working with the very first one that's attached directly to the staff report is probably the easiest way to work. So the first two pages, they have the amount that fee was when adopted in 2020. And then the second column is the proposed fee increase for inflation only. There are a couple exceptions to that formula, and they're highlighted. They're in red on mine, but I guess if you're looking on the screen, they're red for you. The first is halfway down that first page, or 2/3 of the way down that first page. There's a conditional use permit fee and a variance fee. Even with the inflation factor, those would still be extremely low. A conditional use permit fee, for example, of $592 compares to City of Bedford's $3,600. So I've proposed what I think is a pretty conservative increase, but it still comes closer to recovering costs for those two at $1,250. The noise permit fee is highlighted because we didn't previously have a noise permit fee at all. So I proposed that at $25. And I also proposed not increasing the annexation fee at all because it's in the city's interest of annexation. And in the long term, we generate far more revenue from having a property annexed than we do from the fee at the immediate time of annexation. Why don't I stop there and see if there are questions about the overall thrust of updating, of building a consolidated fee schedule and or the community development fees specifically.
I have some questions. My recollection of doing the fee schedule in 2020 was that we indexed it. And I thought that it had built-in these changes proposed in the attached document are adjusted for inflation only. So we did index it for inflation only. We didn't associate it with any other cost increase, which means we would have missed that whole insane inflation period between 2022 and 2021 and 2024.
So I'm not at this moment remembering whether the ordinance said that that the fee should be increased by resolution each year for that inflation adjustment, or whether it directed that it should be automatic. I can tell you we haven't increased it. The fees being charged today are the same as the fees being charged in fall of 2020.
This would be one of those betting moments, because I would bet that we made them automatic. That's my recollection of it. But really, I think the value lesson here is that even when we index it with what was probably like cost of living increases, like that's not adequate. So I wonder, I'm hoping that the council will consider at least this proposed amount, if not more. Because I think adequately or almost capturing our costs is not adequate. we should be capturing our costs.
Mhm.
But also I'm asking if there's room for further discussion about how to index this based on lessons learned in the last 5 years. Because cost of living burned us on every front, where we had indexes. So, I mean, I think it's important for us to go ahead and, let's see, are you asking for action on this amount tonight?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
I am asking for a resolution to make this increase.
So I have two questions. One is, so to finish my thought is, I think it's important for us to take action on this tonight as proposed, but then I think it's important for us to immediately evaluate a way of indexing this annually, automatically, based on a criteria that will make sure we're capturing our costs. And I don't think it's attached to the CIP or whatever it is. This, no, let's see, what is it called?
COLA?
Is it COLA?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't think we tied it to COLA, but it was something like that. Is that, you guys have the capacity for that? To bring something back that,
Well, so to clarify, one is I'd be happy to take your bet because I'm looking at the code right now, so. It does say that it'd be established and amended by yeah, each.
dude, are you watching a
year.
baseball game over there? Oh, what's the score? All right,
So I think that the challenge, to your proposal is, I hear two things. I hear an index and then something that's gonna actually capture our costs. And to me, to actually capture our costs requires a pretty detailed study each year. It's something different than
Gotcha.
indexing.
that makes sense. Yeah, it's more complicated than that, right? Okay, well, so I guess my last question then is, and it's probably in here and I just didn't capture it, but is that built into? Are we just gonna do, yeah, are we gonna do this by resolution every year moving forward still?
That's my assumption is that what over the course of this year as we adjust each time we adjust anything that appropriately should show up on a fee schedule, that you direct us to incorporate it in a master fee schedule. And sort of part of the budget process every year is you are adopting that new fee schedule. So
That's exactly what I was just gonna next ask you is, can we make this part of the budget process? And then do we have a guiding document for the budget process in the city of Talent that would outline this as part of the process?
I'm not aware of one, but that sounds like a good idea.
Council Coley?
Yeah, I really like the idea of this being, if it has to happen by resolution, that makes sense to me because the indexes aren't going to work, especially with the world the way it is. But it being at a set time every year, part of the budget process, if we can get as many of the fees, we'll have a really fun fee meeting and hopefully there'll be more people here than there are now. Fee season, great. I'd much rather see that than here and there and, oh, we forgot to do this, so we gotta raise this one more now, so it can just become more regular.
Councilor Panamara?
Thanks. I just want to say thanks for this report and the thought that went into it. I'm supportive of all of the changes. Although there's one I'm wondering about, and that's under public records requests, where the research time of up to 30 minutes is free. And that, I feel that's something that could be taken advantage of if we're basically saying we will research public records for up to 30 minutes for free. That could, really hit our staff time. So I'm wondering if we could, it's one thing if staff said, waives it or, oh, it's not gonna be any trouble, I'll just do it for you. I can understand that, but I wouldn't want us to be, I mean, I can see potential for abuse of our staff time if we promise 30 minutes free. So I'd kind of like to see that change to an amount, maybe even the
Can I
$25.
ask a question about, a follow-up question about this, Counselor Penamara? This, I recall that this has been in force at least since 2020. I thought that it was enacted right around that same time, if not at the same time. And I would want to know if it has been an issue. And if there has been an impact, an inordinate impact to our staff.
Yeah, before I turn to Hector to answer that question specifically, just want to set up the utility bill. I was only talking about the community development fee as far as that inflation adjustment. On the utility billing items, I have just learned that several of these were adopted by ordinance. So my request for this evening is that we just not worry about, not address the utility fee schedule, because we need to either delete that ordinance or delete that portion of the ordinance to allow us to update that by resolution. So there's an additional step we need to do before we take on these water billing items, the page 3. Then turning.
Increases that we just did on the water bills?
No, they're not rates. They're like disconnect fees and late fees.
Gotcha.
So, and then moving to the page where the public records are. So there's a police report section here. My understanding is these fees have not been formally adopted. There is, I think, plenty of precedent and case law and other law that makes it clear that cities can charge fees to recover costs. So I don't think there's any issue that it hasn't been previously adopted by resolution, but we'd like to clean that up. And so in the police fees, I'm primarily proposing that we just memorialize what those fees are. Turning to the public records requests, my understanding is that these fees have been in place at least since 22, which was the last time that the public records policy was adopted and updated. I'll turn to Hector to address Councilor Penalmanov's question about how often are we being asked to do the up to 30 minutes research for free, and how much of a burden is that on staff?
Thank you, Alex, and Councilor Penamara. I'll do my best to answer your question regarding, I think we should perhaps be very clear on the word free. We don't necessarily refer to any of the work within the scope as free. It can be waived. That amount can be waived. So in fact, I'm reading the records request policy right now, and I quote, requesters submitting a records request may request a fee waiver or a fee reduction in the public interest. So the first hour of staff time may be waived. That is verbatim from the records request policy. So other requesters perhaps submitting too many records requests, and I would say no. Typically, someone might submit a records request with a lot of requests, then they would like for that to be less than 30 minutes. They'll adjust their records request to meet that minimum amount. I hope that answered that. I'm sorry if that was a little convoluted.
Well,
May I-
yeah, go ahead.
So Hector, am I right in remembering that policy didn't actually set a specific amount though for the fee? I don't think
You mean as far as time is concerned?
I don't think there are any dollar figures in that.
Correct.
policy.
And I'll read from it. It says the first half hour of staff time may be waived to encourage narrower requests. That's directly from the policy.
Gotcha, but it didn't actually name the $25 per hour.
No, it did not.
Okay, so I think what we should probably do is strike this first line, the up to 30 minutes research time, and just called research time, $25 an hour, and put an asterisk that it may be waived in cases where the research time is de minimis.
$40 an hour.
Sorry, yeah, the former fee was 25 and then the proposal would be $40 an hour.
And is $40 an hour fully loaded?
If,
Is that a fully loaded rate?
if I could chime in really quick, I think what the procedure we've been following is that's the minimum amount. But then if the records request requires a department head, then we would replace that amount with the cost of that staff time. Because everyone's staff time is a different rate.
I guess really my real question, that makes sense, and I appreciate that that's how we're doing it. My real question is, are we recovering at $40 an hour? Because it seems to me that that doesn't really recover even like counter staff time when you think about a loaded rate. So I think we're undershooting at $40 an hour. And, you know, I mean, it's no secret, I'm pounding the drum this year to recover our, we can't subsidize these things anymore. Especially when we're gonna go out and educate and do training on new revenue sources. So, yeah. Can we get a rate that recovers the cost of doing all of these things, really?
Thank you, Mayor. The reason I chose $40 an hour was to normalize it with what the police is charging for sort of their line staff work. I think
Chief.
we certainly, I mean, I would be happy to provide a more exact figure. We ultimately have to pick one classification though. And it's not necessarily going to be that same individual each time. I have on my desk.
But I think even if we were selecting one classification, we're still not meeting the mark. If that classification was a counter staff, for example, if you're talking about class of employee.
Well, so yes, and I think in the case of the public records request, our practice is there's one amount for essentially the city recorder. If it requires research by other staff, we go to that staff member's actual cost.
Well, I think if
What I think you suggest is you'd like to do that more regularly in all of these fees.
yeah, I think what I'm suggesting is if the council decides to adopt these fees tonight as they're reported, I would hope that we could also get a near time assessment where we're actually looking at fully loaded rates and recovering the cost to the city to perform all of these actions. So I think I think it's evident, it seems evident that $12.50 is not going to cover. I mean, I know that preparations for variance and preparation for conditional use permits are burdensome. And that would be an example of maybe coming back within a period of time so that we can. In the meantime, I want to commend staff for bringing this to us. I do want to do that. And this extensive work that you've done, but I do think that, I mean, I think the goalpost is full recovery of our costs. Counselor Penamrath?
Yeah, I do agree with that. I have a question about waiving. Does staff have the ability to be, and the reason I'm getting at this, I like the idea of being able to waive a fee for a public records request if staff feels it's in the public interest or something like that. Does staff have so the question is, does staff have the ability to waive any of these fees as a matter of policy? Or do we have to explicitly say may be waived by staff in here?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure, Dave. Do you have?
I think
Please.
I might have some history.
Yeah.
So I think waiving the fee for records request is based on criteria, right? Isn't there some sort of criteria that is maybe developed by the LLC or the state?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's based on criteria. And my understanding is that the staff doesn't have the ability to waive fees.
That's my understanding as well, and I would say you probably want that. You don't want to have the neighbor paying less and next door having to pay more, and how do you explain that? Just, I mean, it certainly looks like it's favoritism, and you don't want that.
Counselor
But
Palmer?
I think sometimes it happens. I think I know a nonprofit that got their fee waived for like a reservation of a room or something, but the reason was it was kind of a community service reason. It was like there was a miscommunication, so as a way of apology, it was a waiver of the waiving the fee, something like that. So there's not just, yeah, certainly you don't want to show favoritism, but sometimes there's customer relationship reasons to waive or reduce fee.
Which I 100% object to. And I hope,
I think it happens, so I think.
well,
To be
it may have
clarified.
happened incidentally, but I think when we have clarification with these renewed policies that, because of all of the reasons that Dave is mentioning, is that there's no, if there was criteria, and we all adopted the criteria, that would be a different issue, but if there's no criteria, waiving fees should not be allowed.
If I could just clarify for the record on that specific item, there is an adopted policy that does give the city manager authority to adjust those specific fees.
In that case, I agree with it, where there's criteria or if it's in the
There-
policy.
There isn't criteria, so you may disagree with the quality of the policy, but the practice has followed the policy.
Fair enough. Counselor Collet?
Yeah, I had a question about the tree fees, page 84, and where they go. So I know there's all the various fees for tree removal permits and different types. There's also mitigation, which was $500, and you're proposing to raise to $625. In my memory, that's supposed to go into a tree fund. But in looking at the budget, we don't have a tree fund. I'm curious where the mitigation money goes. Also, if the other permit costs would also go into that fund, or they would go to planning for the cost of processing the permit.
Staff will do some research.
Cool, thank you.
We want a tree fund.
I think we have a tree fund, or we're supposed to, and I think money's been spent from a tree fund, but I just looked at the budget and I did not see a tree fund, so there you go.
Counselor Pestizo?
I just have a curiosity question, I guess. I noticed you've got public records requests and you've got copies, black and white copies, color. But then you also have a mapping and miscellaneous where you have color maps of different sizes. Wouldn't those just be a public records request?
Typically not. So we wouldn't require somebody to go through a public records request for a copy of the zoning map, for instance.
Okay.
And those also, I mean, conceivably could be produced in bulk.
Yeah, because the reason I asked is
Yeah.
because they could make it a public records requesting and they'd all be less than half the cost. I just,
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
and I don't, I'm surprised, you guys actually get requests for, and you are willing to do GIS work for people from the public?
My suspicion, and I don't know, I don't know about your questions about the maps, how often we get those kinds of map requests. My suspicion about the GIS hourly rate is less for that we're, selling those services. Sometimes as part of another process, we may have to do dedicated GIS time. And so that would be, it would rarely be charged as a standalone item. It's an additional item to an additional cost when it was required to complete, we had an annexation, for example, and it required 2 hours of GIS work that's not typical for an annexation.
Also, so these aren't just public fees, these would be for like a developer that wants something.
Well, so, yeah, if a developer was asking us for research on, floodplain, and that was complex and it required our GIS person to spend serious time for it, then, and we were the logical source for that, then we'd be able to recover our costs.
Yeah, interesting, because I've been doing GIS with Valley for 15, almost 15 years now, and never had to do anything like that. Because the policy isn't to do that kind of stuff. There's people who do that, they have businesses that do it, and the data is public. So I'm just throwing that out there. And part of the reason is because it just became a pain in the butt to do that sort of thing.
So a person would just go to like a private
Yeah.
GIS guy and buy
Yeah.
it from them?
Yeah, or these
Yeah.
days, a lot of it's online. You just go sort of explore your own map.
All right, well, any other questions or comments? Again, I just want to encourage the council, if you adopt this tonight, that you consider additional direction to get an assessment about recovering our costs. And, because I'm looking at how many line items there are, I think just a general assessment would. If that's possible. Council Penamara?
Yeah, I'm not ready with the motion yet because I'm trying to understand if, I think the idea is to get something on the books tonight so we can start. So planning can charge these fees, right, as soon as possible. And then moving forward, we want to make sure that we are recovering our costs. So what the mayor just said. So if we were going to make a motion tonight for this, we would want to remove utility fees. And also, and then I also heard strike the line about public, half an hour public records for free. Are those the two changes? And then I think maybe the moving forward could be a separate motion.
That matches my understanding, Councilor Penal.
Okay, well, I can't, I'm trying to get the original motion.
Page 83.
As I page through these, it takes a while to render.
Mhm.
Having that.
Yeah, it's doing
it's
that.
freaking-
Page 83.
Yeah, well, you can go for it.
I can't remember what you just said though, for your.
Okay, I got it. Yeah. I'm ready with the motion if you'd like.
If there's no further questions, I'll entertain a motion. Councilor Penamara?
I move to adopt resolution number 2025-124-R to adopt the fiscal year 2025-2026 City of Talent fee schedule with the following amendments. 1, removal of the utility fees section. And 2, removal of the line for public records request under 30 minutes being free.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 2025-124-R to adopt the fiscal year 2025-2026 City of Talent fee schedule with the following amendments. Removing the utility fee schedule and then removal of the 30 minutes from records requests. Was there a third? Okay. Any further discussion?
Mayor, if I may just say for the record that that council was discussing the proposed fee schedule that was the first attachment to the staff report, not the version that was the attachment to the resolution. There's one error
On which?
on the version that was attached to the resolution did not match the conditional use. So the conditional use permit, the 1250 of the conditional use permit and the variance is correct in the version that was attached directly to the staff. That change did not move it into the version that was attached to the resolution.
Okay, so let the record show what the dollar amounts are.
1,250 for both the conditional use permit and the variance.
Okay, does everybody understand the motion? Counselor Penamarav?
Was there also, I think I also saw the vacation of the right of way might have been in disagreement. I seem to remember there was a third one, but I was already bugging you too much. And, I mean, make sure I'm not.
Well, no, that matches 740 plus recording fee. Oh, the recording fee is different though.
Yeah,
So the recording fee
1450, yeah,
is 1450.
okay, so there were those three, were the only ones I saw. Or we could just say what you wanted to, let me just say, the schedule attached to the staff.
Yeah, I'm gonna restate the motion.
Okay,
So the motion is to adopt resolution number 2025-124-R to adopt the fee schedule, the fee year 2025-26 City of Talent fee schedule. The following amendments to remove the utility fee schedule, to remove the 30-minute clause in the records request, to show a fee of $12.50 for the variance fee, and also $1,250 for the conditional use permit, and then $1,450 for the recording fee
mhm.
um,
For the vacation.
for the vacation
Right.
of right of way. Everybody understand the motion?
Mhm.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Council Collet,
Yes.
Council Penemroff,
Yes.
Council Medina,
Yes.
Council Pestizo,
Yes.
Council Byers,
Yes.
Councilor Par Miller.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mayor.
Thank you, Hector. Next item on the agenda is item number 9, which is committee reports. I'll start. Planning Committee did not have a quorum. And I went to the RV-COG meeting and we covered we actually did spent most of the time doing a roundtable, hearing from reports from different cities and different jurisdictions. I want to just draw everybody's attention to what's happening at RVTD. It's the financial cuts there are reaching crisis level, and to quote the board member, they're not under yet, but their services are going to be significantly cut. And then that's, yeah, and then we had a performance review for, we reviewed a performance review for Anne Marie, the executive director. Anybody else? Councilor Penamarav.
Thank you. Yeah, you may have read about the transportation package failing for one senator refused to vote yes on it. So that'll mean there'll be layoffs, as you've probably read, in ODOT coming soon. I was at the Rogue Valley Metropolitan Planning Organization, and there was a somewhat controversial policy that was decided upon. The policy was whether transportation projects that had been awarded these federal funds in the past would continue to automatically get more federal funds if they were incomplete. The result of that policy, or the impact right now, is there's about $10 million in what's called CMAQ funding, which has to do with congestion mitigation
Air quality.
and air quality, thanks. Talent does have, the Krill Road. Thank you, Alex, for doing that presentation. For that, to compete for that money. What happened was, the city of Central Point, brought forward a project that they had gotten approved for a couple of million, I think it was under 3 million, 10 years ago. And that basically it's now 10 million and, requested 7 million of the 10 million that's available. Medford came in with a similar project and requested, some more of that. So and and while the policy talked about available funds, the interpretation of the committee was that the available funds would include the 1.3 million a year over the next 4 years of the current cycle of awards. So what that means, there's probably about 1 million left for the current solicitation that Talent is competing for. And it's competitive. So it's very possible, very likely that the Krill Road will not get the federal funding and won't be able to move forward as a result of that. It was a rather confusing discussion. I did vote against the motion to interpret the full 10 million rather than just the 6.5 that had been brought forward to be available to past projects. But it seems like it might be unfinished projects are funded in perpetuity, which would mean that there's, probably won't be solicitations in the future. My ask of this council right now is to make a request of staff to request clarity. There's a couple of committees. There's the policy committee, which I serve on and chair. And there's also the technical advisory committee, which is staff from all the 10 jurisdictions participate. So what I would like is if the council agrees, just to request staff to make a request of clarification. One is that and this could be coming from the TAC or the staff of the MPO. What does this interpretation of the rule mean and what are the effects on all jurisdictions? And to get that in writing and made clear, because to the other jurisdictions that weren't even there. And then my second question is, I really don't remember if the Creel project, which has been on the books for a long time, whether it ever made it in the past, whether it was one of those approved projects that might be entitled to that funding in perpetuity. I don't think it is. I think I have asked that question before and there was some understanding, but if we could get clarity on that. So those would be two questions I'd like to come from staff rather than from me.
Does staff understand the two questions?
Yes, thank you.
Can I just get, are there any objections to directing staff on those two questions? All right, we have consensus for that. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Thank you, Councilor Panamarev. Councilor, any other committee or commission reports? All right. Next item on the agenda is other business and future agenda items. I have a few items, but I'll yield to anybody else who wants to go first. One of them is, I had this on my list before we had the discussion earlier, is to develop a flag policy. And my particular interest is that we fly the pride flag in June. I think we made that decision at minimum, we had a discussion about it at one point in time. I know they fly the pride flag in Ashland at City Hall, or is it in the plaza? Does anybody remember? Anyway, for the council's consideration to fly the pride flag in June at some location as part of as part of a flag policy. And then incidentally, we can consider it'd be a good time to just also consider the times that we're gonna hang the 40 flags. I think having a flag policy for hanging those 40 flags in the event that we didn't have volunteer would make sure that it got done, whether there's volunteer or staff. So putting that in a policy as well. and when they go up and when they come down. Is there anything else that, does anybody object to having, something like this come before us? For consideration, Counselor Byers?
I don't, but I would, and I am excited to see it. I would encourage thought into other potential flags that we may want to include in that policy.
Agreed. Okay. The other thing, I have on here is, I know that I asked about this not long ago about the property for the Wagner Street extension purchase, and it was agreed that there was no hurry, that Bonnie wasn't in a hurry, which was a little bit of a change of tune a couple of years, at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. She was kind of anxious about it. I'm glad that she's not anxious about it anymore, but I do think that has been in the plan to purchase that property for, before 2008. And I just feel like we're vulnerable if we don't purchase that property. You have good news.
Well, thank you, Mayor. We do have scheduled a meeting next week.
Oh, good.
With Bonnie and her son, I believe.
Yeah, great. I just would hate, this is probably not necessary to say, but I would hate if we saw ourselves in a place someday where somebody changed their mind and they didn't want to sell the property. And then my third item is, I mentioned it at the last meeting, and I didn't feel like I asked for enough clarity about it, but you mentioned you were going to bring a proposal to the council for a community development director. I think you did. I want to make sure you did, and that I'm not remembering this wrong. And if you are, what kind of timeline?
My recollection was that you requested that I do that, and my response was, or a plan to add a community development director, and I think my response was yes, and that's got significant budget implications that are, well, obviously it's not reflected in the budget. So to be completely frank, I have not spent a lot of time thinking about it. So, but I hear the request that there's a desire to discuss that. Yeah.
So my specific question is, can we get a sense of a timeline when we can have that discussion? The answer could be no, if you don't, if that's the answer you want to give me.
Well, I mean, I think that's appropriate for the look ahead. I mean, you all can tell me where you want to prioritize that in of the items that you want to discuss.
Okay, we'll save it for the look ahead.
That would be helpful for me, because I need to grab it from Hector, because I don't have it.
Let's do that. This is the new format for the look ahead. I like it. And just for the other council, I am bringing this up on, most of you probably already know this, but I'm bringing this on in chambers, this discussion up in chambers, because that's where the charter allows us to discuss staffing, is while we're in chambers. And I think it says something, the language is something like, unless you're in chambers or something like that, but it says that conversations about staffing can be had while we're in chambers. Council Penamara?
I thought it was just
I don't interpret it that way, but I'd be willing to have that discussion. So is there anybody else for other? Councilor Collet?
Yeah, I might defer to Counselor Byers on this, and maybe we need to wait for a Parks Committee meeting to happen, but there's been some public input that I've seen about parks maintenance. I have some input as well about parks maintenance and also general open space maintenance, which I don't know necessarily falls under the purview of parks, but Public Works manages the parks, that's all intertwined. Yeah, I'd love to have some conversation about how we can do it better going forward.
May I,
Counselor Byers?
I've seen that too, and what I've been doing is encouraging people with input to communicate that to parks and to communicate that to staff and really where they would do that and all the different ways they can. It's definitely a topic of conversation in our community right now, though. And some of it is connected more to a lack of awareness of the Chuck Roberts master plan being amended and those amendments being adopted, and then the funding for those, and other parts of it are definitely repairs or maintenance that are ongoing and regular work.
Also, I've been forwarding some of that information to you, Alex, and Alex has been responding with plans as well. Counselor Medina?
Have those plans like been announced anywhere, like in the flash or?
Yeah, and there was even an open house where people could come and look at a big map and talk to a bunch of the parks commissioners about it, and
Are you talking about the parks plan?
yeah. And there was a public hearing aspect to a couple of meetings.
I think I forwarded you a recent thing, but there was, I think there was, I sent you a communication. There is a little bit of difference in the things that, and I know you acknowledge this and recognize this, the things that are like this, this tennis court is going to be replaced, and so there's no more repairing that we can do. And there's weeds in the volleyball sand. So there are two different issues that are happening, and I felt like I got acknowledgement on that. So, yeah, I may have copied you on that email, I think. I didn't. All right, I'll forward it to you. All right, anything else? Counselor Penamara?
Are we talking about the look ahead yet?
We can move right to the look ahead.
Sorry. I just lost the train of thoughts.
No, it's okay. You wanted, did you have? something on the look ahead?
I wanted to know, well, I see that we skipped September. That might be a reason for that, but I really only wanted to know about the date, whatever day is not going to, we'll be skipping a council meeting.
Yes, so, thank you, Counselor. So, yes, what I believe we have settled on is striking the August 20th meeting. So that electrification energy element would need to be pushed out. And that also means that we should have a tour meeting on August 6th to comply with those bylaws. The reason that we skipped September is that we have a date certain for the storm SDC update because of the public notice. It's 90 days, so it's significant. I think where I'd like to focus would be what are the topics not yet listed on July 16th or August 6th that the council would prioritize.
Counselor Penamara?
Thanks. I think as far as a tour meeting, I think you can cancel the meeting and still be in compliance with the bylaws. So I think we don't have to have a meeting. We've done that in the past, but as long as you can't notice the cancellation.
I think don't the bylaws say that the Torah shall have one regular meeting per month?
Yeah, but a regular meeting can be canceled.
Okay.
You don't actually have to meet. You're just supposed to have a regular meeting, but the meeting can be canceled. That's my understanding of when this came up before. I also want to say I'm going to be out of state on the 16th of July. And I just want to make sure that there's quorum, that other folks will, like, one other person's allowed to not be.
Well, I'm not gonna be here. I'll be out of state as well.
Okay, on the 16th.
That
Okay, so
week,
that-
yeah.
So, because you really need quorum that day for the continuation of the public hearing.
We found a way to manage that with the planning commission, and I think the city council had even more flexibility to continue a public hearing without. Yes. So, it would be good to have quorum to do regular business, but it's not especially important for the purposes of that, of continuing that public.
So is that to say then the regular meeting, and I thought we chose a August meeting to cancel. Are we canceling July 16th? Is that what's happening now?
No.
No.
August
Okay, I
20th.
lost track. I was reading something.
So Dave and Eleanor won't be there August 16th, but
July
July
16th.
July 16th, but the meeting is still on for July 16th.
Yeah.
And Torah is still on for July 16th.
It's on for August 6th
Well, and July 16th.
and July.
Yeah, there's no need to cancel the Torah meeting.
Right.
Potentially. I'll review with Dave, how we handle, the August 6th, if there isn't something that we really want to tackle with Torah on
Gotcha.
August 6th.
All right. Anything else for look ahead? So to just maybe getting back to the question I asked earlier about the discussion for the community development director, and Counselor Panamara, to your question about the charter entry, it is in section 2310, except in a council meeting, no council member may directly or indirectly by suggestion or otherwise attempt to influence the manager or a candidate for the office of manager in the appointment, discipline, or removal of personnel or in decisions regarding city property or contracts. A violator shall be stabbed. So
Yeah.
I interpret that into being able to have a
That's like a creation of a job role.
I mean, technically, the council could actually just appoint somebody for it. I mean, we'd have to pay them and then they'd report to the council, but I don't think,
Out of
yeah.
our discretionary.
yeah, out of the discretionary fund, exactly. But yeah, that's how I interpret that.
That's fair.
So can we get that on, the word I was looking for is to interpret that to include the organizational chart. That's what I meant. So can we get that on a look ahead? And really,
Sure.
Alex, I'm fine if you want to think about it and decide later but I'm just hoping to.
Yeah, so just to share with you what's in my head right now is I think it's very closely tied to the public discussion about revenue and services that we're talking about having next fall. So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking about is the timing of that decision vis-a-vis that discussion. And it feels like it might be better to. I can see a very good argument to delay that discussion until after, after that discussion this fall. I struggle to see how we pay for it. But we could go, we certainly, happy to go deeper on that with you all. On, whether that's July 16th or August 6th or.
That'd be great. Counselor Penamara?
For the electrification energy element, it's on August 20th for now. Would it be okay to move that to either the first meeting in September on September 3rd or the 17th?
Absolutely, I think we have to, if we're not meeting on the 20th. So.
Well, or you could forget about it. I don't want you to do.
Okay.
I'm wondering if we could make that call. I mean, there's time. Thanks.
Great. I think I'm satisfied with this discussion unless there are other things that you all want to share with me.
All right. Well, then that puts us on adjournment at 9:22.
Thank you all. Have a great July 4th, Independence Day.
Hector, I'm